Good evening and welcome back to the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. We continue with our big focus on economy. Actually, that's the wrong way to put it, viewers. We continue with the big focus on our lives, yours and mine, and what it could possibly hold in this year. As we battle coronavirus, the big impending challenge is also how we go about our jobs. How many jobs we're able to save in this country? How many people have already been rendered jobless and how many more may lose their jobs? If those who hold on to it will probably have to see some salary cuts. Now, I want to begin this conversation with a CMIE report that's just come out for the month of April. And the report says that unemployment rate in India has spiked to an all-time high of 27% in April 2020. Not surprising, since the economic activity came to a standstill and people were out of jobs. The numbers from the report paint a very grim picture. As many as 122 million jobs as per this report. That's effectively 12.2 crore jobs were lost in just 1 month. You can call this the lockdown impact, the corona impact, or just worsening of our economy. Of this, 9 crore small traders and laborers lost their jobs, 1.82 crore entrepreneurs shut shop, 1.78 crore salaried employees lost their jobs, and in all, it was 12.2 crore with unemployment rate at 27%. We've repeatedly gotten news stories of sectorally just how grim and bad situation is. And I actually want to read out a quote from Mahesh Vyas. He is the chief executive of CMIE, because as this report comes out, he says, initially a lockdown only hurts the most vulnerable. Gradually, lockdown starts hitting the more secure jobs. Startups have announced layoffs. Industry associations have warned of job cuts. Essentially, tougher times are yet to come. Maybe in the month of May and June. We don't know. But let's talk about it. Let's get a sense of just how bad it is, where are we headed, and what can be done. So let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. Praveen Khandelwal, Secretary General for the Confederation of All India Traders. Mihir Desai, co-owner of Quorum Hospitality. Rahul Mehta, President for the Clothing Manufacturers Association of India. But first up, I want to go across to Professor Santosh Mehrotra and ask him this question: if he believes that what we saw in April is just the beginning, we could be in for worse in May and June. Professor Mehrotra? Professor Mehrotra, good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm just asking whether you're asking me or someone else.
I was asking you if you believe that the worst is yet to come and April is just the beginning in terms of unemployment and job loss.
Well, this is not going to change for a long time. I think that's what I would say. It's going to improve somewhat, because obviously once the lockdown is lifted, all the self-employed people are going to return to doing what they were doing earlier. But those who were casual workers and those who were in regular work who lost their jobs, that will return only very slowly. So the ones who, in a sense, who will return to quote-unquote work, which is very vulnerable work, because incomes are down, and therefore the self-employed's livelihoods are going to be impacted as we move forward. For the casual workers and even for the regular workers, the return of jobs for months to come is going to be limited.
Okay. But, you know, what we've seen, one part of it obviously is the labor and the self-employed, where you see improvement. But the employed, salaried workers, the traders, the wholesalers whose business is right now struggling and perhaps won't pick up anytime soon. Should we brace ourselves for a harder impact there, Professor Mehrotra?
No, as I said earlier, those who are traders and self-employed, if anything, as the lockdown recedes, as it is eased, economic activity will resume. It will not resume by anywhere close to the level that was prevailing in February. And please remember that February levels of unemployment were among the highest in our country's history in any case. So it's not as though, just returning to February is going to be wonderful news for them. And for the vast, please remember that regular workers are in a sense least affected. The most affected are the self-employed. Most of the self-employed are going to come back to doing what they were doing, the traders and the mochi, the nai, etc. It's the worst affected will definitely be the casual workers, and for the regular workers, it will be months before work returns, and even for casual workers, it will be months before the economy recovers, and therefore their employment and livelihoods return.
Let me go across to our other panelists as well and ask them, the kind of impact they're seeing in different sectors. Rahul Mehta, let's begin with you. Textile industries were shut for almost 6 weeks. Now, some of them may begin work, but then they might find that their workers have already gone home or on their way home. So, what's the sentiment? What's the outlook for the sector?
Well, frankly, the sentiment seems to be quite low, and the scenario appears to be very grim. CMAI, Clothing Manufacturers Association of India, we had conducted 2 surveys at the beginning of April and towards the end of April. And we found that at the beginning of April, approximately 20% of our members who had responded to our survey had indicated their desire to shut down their operations post the lifting of the lockdown. And interestingly enough, the end of April survey indicated that this number had shot up to 31%. So you can imagine from 20% to 31%, the increase of number of people who wanted to shut down their operations post the lifting of the lockdown. Now, in addition to that, those who did not indicate a desire to shut down did confirm that they would be cutting jobs to the extent of anywhere between 20 to 30% and reduce the salaries of those employees who are continuing to work with them. So if you consider that the total number of employees in the garment sector, I'm only talking of the garment sector, not the entire textile value chain, is 12 million, of which approximately 8 million is in the domestic sector. You can work out the humongous numbers that we are talking about. We are talking about job losses of just close to 4 million to 5 million people just in the garment sector. And if you actually translate that across the entire textile value chain, you could end up seeing a job loss of almost close to 10 million people. So that's how serious and grim the situation appears to be.
Mr. Praveen Khandelwal, just since we're talking about various segments and the grim situation, even the CIABC has done its own math about what we could possibly be looking at. Take us through what your own estimates are.
Well, first of all, I don't agree with the report of CMIE because of the simple reason that in entire retail trade of the country, so far there is absolutely no job loss because we have advised the traders across country not to retrench even a single employee. So therefore, there is no occasion for any job loss in the retail sector. That is point number one. Point number two, the CMIE report says that 9 crore traders will lose the job. I want to just say that there are about 7 crore traders who are providing employment to 40 crore people. So definitely these numbers are very contradictory what has been stated by CMIA. But certainly there is a big challenge for the retailers to operate their business activities post lockdown because of the simple reason that as per the directions of the government, we have been given a mandate to pay the salaries to our staff. The interest on bank loans have been deferred, but certainly we have to bear the interest during the period of lockdown. And moreover, there will be a financial crunch when this lockdown will be lifted. As on date, as per a survey from 25th March till 30th of April, the retail sector has lost a business to the tune of 5.5 lakh crores of rupees. And if handholding of the small traders have not been done, then I fear that there will be approximately 20% of the traders across country will have to shut down their businesses. And not only that, the 10% traders who are dependent upon these 20% people will also have to shut down their businesses. So there is something a very challenging situation when lockdown will be lifted, and the traders will be burdened with numerous kinds of financial obligations. And unfortunately, there is totally blockage of inflow in our shops, because shops are closed since last more than 43 days, and it will go till 17th May, presumably. Therefore, the inflow is not there, but outflow stands as it is. So therefore, the traders will be under great obligation to fulfill all these requirements, and in fact, they are eating their own capital, and by eating own capital, it is certainly not a profitable business for anybody. And there is one more situation, that the credit lying in the market of the trading community will not be recovered before 60 days, because when the lockdown will be lifted, we will not be having liquidity with us, and our money which has been blocked with our fellow traders, or with the companies whom we are supplying material. So certainly they are not going to give us our payments on the first day itself. So it will take nearly 45 days to 60 days.
Correct.
And actually, the money flow will start in the market after 60 days. So therefore, it is a big challenge for us to sail through those 60 crucial days when we don't have any money. So therefore, we have demanded the government to give us
So,
a
Mr. Khandelwal,
economic stimulus.
yes,
Yes,
actually, I
please.
was going to ask you that. You say 20% of the traders might have to shut down. What do we need to do? What does the government need to do? What does the RBI or the banks, what do the banks need to do to ensure this doesn't happen right now?
See, first of all, Government of India and state government should give us a stimulus package. That is point number one. The point number two is the Reserve Bank of India is having a scheme called TREADS. So, but under that TREAD, our buyer should have a turnover of around 300 crores of rupees. Only then our bills will be discounted. But we have asked the government to bring down this TREAD limit from 300 crore to 10 crores of rupees. In that way, we will be able to discount our bills with the TREADS, and in that case, we will be having working capital with us. Thirdly, there is a scheme called Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. So we have asked the government that the threshold of mudra limit from 10 lakhs should be increased to 25 lakhs of rupees, and an easy mechanism should be crafted, wherein the traders may get easy money from the banks under mudra loan scheme if these three steps are taken by the government, I'm sure we are there. We shall certainly be there, and we will conquer the corona. Otherwise,
Okay.
otherwise there is a very grim and unfaithful future for the traders in the country.
Well, I don't know of any sector which actually is looking at a bright future right now. It's just grim and dark everywhere. And we need to come together to start brainstorming right now of how to at least make it a little better and not that bad. But Mihir Desai, co-owner for Quorum Hospitality, also with us this evening. Mihir, even for startups and smaller businesses, for entrepreneurs out there right now, it's not easy. There is no business, there is no income, and then you have to take care of those who work for you. Okay, I seem to have lost that line with Mihir Desai. We're just going to get him back in just a bit and talk about that. So we've got the Traders Association telling you just how grim things are, that the government needs to come in with the stimulus right now from saving businesses from shutting down. We've heard from the Clothing Manufacturers Association as well. In fact, I just want to take you through some of the data that even a CII survey has put up. Now, this is again an industry federation. They say 74% of business face complete shutdown of operations. This is the corona lockdown impact, of course. 53% of the businesses are facing lack of demand for products, again as in consequence of the lockdown. 45% of the businesses are facing credit crunch. And while the RBI has tried to address it to a certain extent, it's not reflective too much on the ground so far. 40% business face unavailability of labor or are struggling with the movement of the labor itself. And 32% business have no access to raw material at all, again because of the lockdown. Mihir's back with us. Mihir, the other part, of course, is the entrepreneurs and the startups where there is no income and you still need to take care of those who work for you. Give us an insight into just how tough those times are.
So basically, it's really tough time for everyone around. And our industry being a labor industry, it's dominated by laborers. So it's really being difficult to even hold them back because it's such a scare, and there are a lot of misconception with laborers that they would die, and in our case we still hold almost 1,200 people on board.
Okay, what would you need from the government right now as support? Every time we speak about this, and there is the response that we get from authorities is, well, Reserve Bank of India has taken some steps to make liquidity available, to make working capital available, but many say that's not reflective on ground. What steps are required from the RBI or the government right now, Mihir?
Majorly, we would require government's input where taxation, our rentals, as FM industry is mainly relied on rental spaces, infrastructure. So on that case, plus there should be some rebates given on taxes, as you know that F&B industry have no input tax rate of GST also. That's the biggest problem we face. Plus some inputs from government for labor. We can, like they've done, like they've given us PF for labor, where we can take an advance labor. We can opt for a advance for the laborers. So that's a good thing which they've done, but yet not that good. I mean, we would need more and more support where it comes to our infrastructure cost, our rents, our license cost, and our taxes, which are a fixed cost.
Oh, okay. Let me go back to to Professor Mehrotra and now turn the conversation to solutions and what we may be looking at even 6-7 months down the line, Professor Mehrotra. The consumer sentiment, the buying capacity, which is already down and out even before the pandemic hit us, has now been further dented. So we are in this for the long haul, and it's not going to be easy throughout this year. What's your own sense? Even 6 months from now, how many of these jobs will we be able to get back, or will we still be staring at a large size of the population without a job?
I'm afraid that 6 months down the road, the situation is likely to be still very grim. However, we have to take action now. And you rightly put your finger on it, Tanvi, that the government needs to take some actions on the demand side, because the economic slowdown prior to COVID was essentially on account of a decline in demand. So let me offer you two suggestions, which I've already made this morning to Rajiv Kumar, the Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog. One is that there has been in the month of April a dramatic fall, a fall so dramatic in the numbers of people who were getting work in Manrega in rural areas. Remember, hundreds of thousands of migrants have gone back. And of course, the majority of our workforce is in any case in agriculture. So, but Manrega generated in the month of April only 10% of what is generated in a month. So clearly what is necessary, this was of course partly on account of the lockdown, but Gram Panchayats have to start using the shelf of works in their village to actually generate work. That means wages get paid, that means new demand gets generated, because these are people who have lost livelihoods, whether it is they've come back from urban areas or they are in rural areas. Secondly, given that the most suffering is that of people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, what the government now needs to do is to initiate cash transfers. Not the kind of minimal cash transfers that were talked about about a month ago when the lockdown began. We are looking forward to a much bigger package which tries to stimulate demand. I'll come back to the MSMEs in a minute. I know most of the people are on this panel are the MSMEs, but I know it's absolutely critical that the package addresses MSMEs. But let me first finish the point about a minimum income guarantee. There has to be a cash transfer, and it is possible to do that. The majority of our poor have actually bank accounts. They also can be identified because of the socioeconomic and caste census. And they also have Aadhaar cards. And if Aadhaar is seeded with the bank account, then you can probably correctly identify who your beneficiaries are going to be. And I have a whole design of this. I've already shared this morning with Dr. Rajiv Kumar. We hope that something real comes of it. PM Kisan is not going to do it. Let me turn to the MSMEs. But before I turn to the MSMEs, let me just say one thing. I was a bit taken aback by Mr. Praveen Khandelwal telling us that he doesn't agree with the CMIE survey. I find that only amusing, because it is a national survey which captures the unorganized sector and it captures the unorganized sector. It captures casual workers and the traders and the self-employed, as well as the regular workers. It captures the rural areas as well as the urban areas. It has a sample which is larger than the National Sample Survey Organization of the country. So for a trader to turn around and tell me as an economist that he does not believe, I think less said about that, the better. Let me come back to what needs to be done for the MSMEs. I think the biggest job generators are MSMEs. And it's one of the most severe crises that they are going to face very shortly, even after the lockdown is lifted. Are the workers going to come back? The workers are too afraid to come back to work.
Correct.
So therefore, and because we know that they live huddled 5 to 10 to a room. And you and I might talk about social distancing, but They cannot have social distancing. All of us who are talking English on this program, we can talk the language of social distancing which has come to us from the West. We should be talking the language of physical distance of 6 feet, but social solidarity. I repeat, social solidarity, because the MSMEs are not, the employers, the traders are not going to be able to work without the workers. So what do we need to do to ensure that the workers come back? First of all, you and I can go to a hospital if we became COVID positive. Can they afford to walk into a private hospital when the government hospitals are already becoming overcrowded with the numbers? Obviously not. So therefore, it's necessary that they are captured, that the Ayushman Bharat actually ensures that whether they have the Ayushman Bharat card or not, they are actually given access to hospitalization, and they are assured of this before they will come back. Point one. Point two, it's absolutely critical that trains will have to run, not just to take them back as they are doing now, but then at a later stage when the lockdown is lifted, trains and buses will have to run to bring them back. You are not going to get them back if you expect them to walk back. Okay? So we better make sure that just as we are flying back our people who are living abroad, we are going to provide the transportation to bring them back. Let me turn to the MSME's concerns about working capital. A very large number of MSMEs have been currently given a 3-month moratorium on their loan repayment. That will have to be extended for another 3 months, definitely, no question. They have also borrowed. They have normally borrowed from non-banking financial companies, NBFCs. While the MSMEs have been given a 3-month moratorium, the NBFCs have not been given a moratorium. So what are the NBFCs going to be able to do? NBFCs also have to survive. So therefore, the government will have to extend that moratorium to NBFCs as well. Point one. Point two, when small companies have borrowed, they've taken term loans, they could also be extended, as was being suggested, working capital loans under the mudra, where all the sort of inflows and outflows of cash that then take place when the business resumes comes back into that bank account, so that the bank can actually track and actually deduct whatever working capital has been extended to them. But the working capital has to be extended to them today, or at least as soon as the lockdown is over.
No, a lot of these,
some of the things.
In fact, Professor Mehrotra, if I could come in there, a lot of these things should have been done today, or actually should have been done yesterday. To the point that you were making about bringing the migrants back, on incentivizing them, which is why, I have been asking this question again and again to the top economists as well as corporates and experts to say, maybe we need to start looking at opening up some of our cities a little bit more, barring the containment areas, because if these migrants are gone, then it's going to take us many months to bring them back to work. And so in areas that we can, let's give them an incentive to stay back, give them their livelihood back. But unfortunately, even now, we had a story coming from Karnataka today where the workers refuse to come to work. Some of the industries that have managed to open, even in the big cities, the workers are too scared right now about the pandemic to turn up to work. And of course, then there is the travel problem, the social distancing problem, and all of that has to be sorted out. But I take the suggestions that you've made, and the government really needs to look at some of them right now. Mr. Praveen Khandelwal wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Well, I have great respect for Mr. Malhotra, but what I was saying, I think he has taken that in another context. I was contesting the figures of CMIE report because it says that jobs have already been lost in April. So therefore, there is no job loss as of now. Of course, I foresee that in future when lockdown will be lifted, perhaps there will be job losses. My second point was that the report has indicated that 9 crore traders will lose their job. For their information, I can just say that as per Government of India, there are about 7 crore traders. So when 7 crore traders are there, how can 9 crore traders have already lost their job in April when they were totally closed? So that was only my contesting point. And whatever Mr. Malhotra has said about
Okay.
whatever he has said about the MSMEs, I fully share his knowledge and his apprehensions. Of course, there is going to be a very challenging time for the small traders, and if they are not provide any kind of
Yes.
stimulus, then definitely it will be a testing time, and I don't think that the traders will be able to succumb to that pressure, and we have to see that most of the traders who are in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they are in a very bad and worse position. And as he rightly said, without workers,
Correct.
what we can do? We can't do anything. And my last point is why workers are not joining us? Because they have been assured of their salary, and that is why they are not interested in joining us. Because whether they join or not, they are going to get their salary which has been ordered by Government of India. Of course, we have given them salary for March, but for April, perhaps we may not be able to bear the load of salary, and that will lead to closure of most of the businesses.
Yes, and Mr. Khandelwal, while I know what you're trying to say is also that because there's a government advisory, most people are not firing anybody or shutting down shop. But of course, when there is a lockdown, work's not happening. But you know, if there is a trader, there are also ancillary vendors and service providers who are linked to that one business. And there are far too many reports, especially in the retail sector that we are getting, about the support services and those people actually losing their jobs. So the main company, a retailer, may not be firing people on its own payroll, but they are cutting down on their vendors. They are cutting down, you know, in terms of their own service providers. And there is some amount of job loss that has taken place. And I'm talking about the big ones as well as the small ones, because everybody at some point needs to also cut down on their costs. They don't have the money. They can either pay their own people who are on their payroll, or outside of that. Rahul, you wanted to make a point as well. And as you do that, the question that I was asking everybody, what should we do from here on to ensure that at least 6 months down the line, we are able to bring back some more people onto the employment roll?
Yeah, well, I'm almost wondering whether I should dare to contest the good professor's comments. But I can only speak on behalf of the garment industry. And perhaps that's what my friend Khandelwal was trying to say,
Okay.
that the March salaries have been paid. Again, CMAI conducted a survey among our members, and the sample size, of course, is not anywhere near the CMIE sample, but it said that 92% of the members had paid the March salaries, and but that figure crashed down to 31% for entrepreneurs having the funds to pay the April salaries, which crashed down to 8% for those having funds to pay the May salaries. So if you are not going to have the funds to pay the salaries, unless the government steps in with some kind of support, it's going to be very unlikely that workers will not move away from their urban centers and migrate back to their villages. And once they do that, the question of job losses coming in the months of April or May and June is definitely going to be much more stark than actually job losses having been lost in March or in April. So that's one point that I was making. And the second point I was making is that everybody seems to be focusing on the manufacturing aspect, including the government wanting to open up the manufacturing. But a simple point seems to have missed the experts, and that is, even if we do open our manufacturing units, whom do we manufacture for? Because from all indications that we have got, opening up of retail, especially organized retail, appears to be the last on the agenda. And unless the retail stores open up, the subsequent layers in the value chain, really there is no point in opening up that. And particularly the organized retail. You see, I would say that 60 to 70% of the garments, the apparel industry, is being sold either through malls or through high street stores. And if these are not going to be allowed to open up, even if my apparel factory today is allowed to open up, I don't see why I should, because I don't have any customers to sell to. So I think this is something where I would request the government to rethink their priorities and their strategy. In my opinion, retail must be allowed to open. And frankly, organized retail will have the facilities to control the crowds, to have the safety features in place. Malls, for example, can control the number of crowds coming in. They can have the testing facilities at the entrance. They can restrict the number of hours that the stores within it are operating. The health features, the social distancing, etc.
Right.
So I personally feel that somewhere along the line, the strategy needs to change, and the organized retail, the market complexes, the high street stores must all get an equal opportunity to start as quickly as possible, because otherwise the rest of the manufacturing chain is not going to serve any purpose by opening up.
I completely agree with you, and we need to, quickly move to that model to ensure that some amount of economic activity revives. And when that plan happens, it has to cater for each segment of the entire supply chain, from the textile to the clothes manufacturers to the retailers and the consumers. Even if one part doesn't fit in and isn't given the relief, then none of this entire cycle is going to work. I wish I had more time to carry on the conversation over the debate of the data, but frankly, the data may vary a little bit here and there. At the end of the day, none of my panelists are also denying the fact that there is a serious problem of employment, of businesses surviving, of traders surviving, of entrepreneurs surviving, of salaried members also managing to keep their jobs. And we need to brace ourselves to see where it goes, and if it gets worse in the month of May and June, and for how long it continues. Because at one go, in one strike, there may be a large amount of job loss. It always takes a really, really long time to then create those jobs again, employ those people again. And until and unless that happens, we will not be able to get back on the growth track. For India, it's a very, very important problem, viewers, because we have a huge population, which is why it becomes even more problematic. So the government needs to start looking at right now and thinking of solutions. Sit with the industry representatives and the economists and the policy makers and give us a solution now, today. We cannot delay this anymore. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Welcome back, viewers. It is day 2 of Lockdown 3.0. It is also day 2 of when alcohol shops, liquor shops were allowed to be open in many parts of our country. And it was day 2 of long serpentine queues, overcrowding, social distancing being disregarded in many parts. In some places, police had to resort to lathi charge again as people queued up to stock up again on alcohol after 6 weeks of lockdown. was one very interesting visual that actually came from Nainital, where at least everybody was observing social distancing, but they stood in the rain to buy alcohol, to buy their liquor stock on day 2 of this new lockdown version. And then we had reports coming in from Delhi, where social distancing again was completely forgotten. In fact, in a couple of places, they had to shut down the shops and then reopen them after the crowd had dispersed. Authorities had a great challenge in terms of controlling the crowd. In Visakhapatnam, the story was no different. In fact, in most parts of our country, wherever the shops opened, we saw a similar story unfold. So I want to talk about if there is a better way to do this, if some part of it can be delivered online, if we need some better regulation and authority presence, how do we ensure that this situation doesn't continue? And before we have that conversation, let's just get you an example. Here is a report that Bhavtosh got for us from our national capital today. Take a look.
A day after Delhi government announced that liquor prices in the capital will be hiked by 70% to make for the revenue shortfall, it has not deterred people from coming to liquor vends. In fact, we are at Crore Bagh here. There is a line which is at least a kilometer long. People have been standing here since early in the morning to make sure that there is no law and order problem or social distancing norms are not being followed. The police have even been deployed here. In fact, local police have been deployed here early in the morning, and they are saying that the crowd in fact arrived at the liquor vend at around 8 in the morning.
So let's say good evening to Vinod Giri, Director General for Confederation of Indian Alcoholic Beverage Companies, and Dilip Gianani is joining us again this evening, Maharashtra Wine Merchant Association member. Let me actually first go across to Mr. Vinod Giri. Mr. Giri, is there a way to work, in a better way with the state and the local authorities to ensure such scenes don't unfold? Now it's been 2 days.
Of course there is. First of all, it shouldn't have happened. And if you just take a minute back, the reason why it happened, we believe that first of all, it's a popular product and it came back after 6 weeks. So there was a pent-up demand. Secondly, remember the liquor is not a product most people stock at home. So which means that they were pretty much dry and there was a demand. Now, we believe, and the fact we all are overlooking is that the number of outlets which opened on the first day especially were very few. For example, in Delhi, you have, say, leave aside the bars because they account for nearly 40-45% of the business. Of the 800 outlets, only 150, 160 were opened on the first day. So now that also compounded the problem. So in our view, and there's other parts, we know that this virus is here to stay. We believe we have to look at solutions which are quick fix solutions, very easy to implement, and they are long-term solutions. So quick fix, simply increase the number of outlets, increase the shop timings. There are a few suggestions have been coming, such as tokens and those things we can implement. Long-term, which is more important because this virus is here to stay, we have to start changing the way we do business, the way we live. So we have been advocating with several state governments. It's high time we start looking at technology. We started looking at things like online home delivery systems, where we actually take away the need for people to go to the outlet. And many other countries are doing it and very successfully doing it. United States, in example, and several other countries. So we have to start looking at different ways of doing business. And we believe, and we are always there to work with the state governments whenever required. We believe there are ways we can solve this problem.
Do you think that online delivery is something that the state governments need to look at or should look at right now? In fact, even as we speak, there's information coming in that in Punjab, the excise department has actually proposed home delivery of alcohol. Obviously, a decision will be taken by the cabinet that meets tomorrow then. But Mr. Giri, is that something that most state governments should look at? It's better than having a crowd outside shops.
Absolutely. I mean, the point I'm making is we are reaching a time where we have to start planning for how do we cut down the human interface, human interaction. And as we speak, I have seen an order from Chhattisgarh government where they are actually moving on to implementing the online delivery system. Today, the technology is there. There are many companies which have already worked the model, and it's a very secure model. So you know the customer verification modules are in place, the transaction mechanism modules are in place, and the delivery verification modules are in place. And if we are so proud of our IT heritage or IT status of our IT, I think we should be at the forefront. We should change this industry, also start moving on to the new technology platforms.
Okay, let me also go across to Mr. Dilip Jainani. Mr. Jainani, of course, the first night that we spoke, there was still quite a bit of confusion of how we are going to go about it, where the shops can open, cannot open, if there are rules on how much you can sell. Now that clarity is coming, do you believe that there is still a lot that can be done, in terms of work with the state to ensure social distancing is maintained and a law and order situation doesn't happen?
I think this was improved by the day coming in. First day, as Mr. Giri said, there were very few outlets which were allowed to be open because we received the orders very late. And subsequently, only 150 or 200 outlets in Bombay could operate on that day. But next day morning itself, we saw that the Mumbai police commissioner had ordered 2 cops coming in at these shops to arrange the social distancing and arrange the lines as such. And by today afternoon, we had token systems in place by the excise department itself. We got a circular from the excise department to issue the tokens to the customers. And I suppose this phenomena is only for a couple of days more because the state is dry since last 45 days. And as Mr. Giri rightly said that people don't store liquor at home in large quantities. That's why this situation had arisen. But we have adopted one more system in our Maharashtra, or in Bombay at least, that we are rationing the stocks at this moment because I feel catering to 2 bottles or 6 bottles of beer is faster than catering the large quantities of these stocks. People have little apprehension that this would be closed down or this would be a short run period that government is going to close down again. Let me make them sure that the liquor shops are not going to be closed, and if at all the social distancing is properly carried on, people have little patience, and we are taking a lot of care. Excise department is taking a lot of care, and even the police department is taking a lot of care of keeping the social distancing. Of course, initially 2 days we have been witnessing a lot of huge rush coming to the outlets, but tomorrow onwards, I suppose many things would be streamlined.
Okay, in fact, I believe there is a order that's just come in, at least as far as Mumbai is concerned. There is a civic body order that has just been issued. I'm going to get you more details, but I think the civic body of Mumbai has decided to roll back some of the relaxations that had been announced, and we'll get you those details in just a bit. Let's talk about this token system a little bit more, Mr. Dilip. How does this work? And can we also explore online delivery even in Maharashtra?
There is no provision of online deliveries in Maharashtra. We don't have provision at this moment. But this can be looked into because we need to take care of a lot of things here. See, in Maharashtra, excise revenue is the major revenue coming in for the state. And second thing, online systems, many a times we are not able to trace the quality of the product, or we are not able to trace the source of the product, and many of the e-commerce problems attached to that. But we can look into that. I'm sure Mr. Giri has some solutions for it, or some proper e-commerce things available with him. I will get in touch with him. I'll try to locate all these things with him, and we can look forward to this.
Okay, I do have more clarity coming in because I'm reading this order as we speak, and this is important for citizens of Mumbai. The Civic Body Commissioner Praveen Pardesi has issued orders saying that I am convinced that the relaxation notifications mentioned above are going to deteriorate the conditions in Mumbai city, and hence the relaxations will have to be withdrawn. In fact, he has said that no such permission for opening of 5 shops which are non-essentials be given for a single lane, and that senior police officer inspectors within each ward jurisdiction will ensure compliance of these orders in toto. Only groceries and medical store or chemist shops will be allowed to be opened. So the debate as far as liquor shops in Mumbai is concerned is over, because here is what the civic bodies decided, that there are far too many cases and far too many issues as far as Mumbai is concerned, and now is not the time to bring in these relaxation for any kind of non-essential shop. But we'll go to that story in just a bit, and we'll keep the news on the screen as well. But let me actually go back to Mr. Vinod Giri. Mr. Vinod Giri, one step that many of the governments are now exploring, 2 governments have already taken, which is the Andhra Pradesh and Delhi, is to raise the prices of alcohol. Now, do you think that will have any impact on sales? Like right now, is that going to reduce the crowding outside the stores?
See, I think it's more likely to be counterproductive. 2 things will happen. If it's a purely economic consideration is there, if the governments are trying to compensate for the revenue lost, the reality is this kind of increase is going to suppress demand. And so if it goes on for a long time, it's a very short-term measure, one can understand. But if it goes on for a week, 10 days, 15 days, a month or so, even more than that, then you'll see the demand falling down. And also, especially since you mentioned a state like Delhi, we must remember that Delhi has quite a few neighboring states. And we should never look at Delhi pricing in isolation, because if the arbitrage is too much, then there's always a potential for the liquor smuggling to begin and all the unlawful activities that we don't want to happen, then to start. So economically, I think it's not a very strong argument behind it. In case if this has been done for the crowd control, then I think then there are many other ways, very effective ways of crowd control we can do. And some of these we have spoken about: open more outlets, expand timings, and the way in Mumbai they have done the token system. And having said that, I just want to cover quickly one more point. I don't think shutdown is a solution under any circumstances. It's a legally traded product. So as long as the demand is there, people will come tomorrow. Whenever you open, the similar situation is going to happen. So, and this is not that after 1 month we will not have corona around us. We have to learn to live with it. In fact, the term I've heard, one of the Mr. Kejriwal in Delhi also said it, that we have to learn to live with the virus, coexist with the virus. So we have to start adapting ourselves. We have to start doing new things the way. So shutting down, to my mind, is not an option. You are just pushing the problem to another point in future. We should be more innovative about this. And we, all of us are together in this. Industry, the retail trade, and the government. We are not different. We are just one. We have to fix this issue.
In fact, I was going to ask you on that, because in many parts what we've seen is that the shops are being open only for a few hours. Now, isn't that going to add to the whole problem? The minute you say the shop will only open for 2 hours, you will see a bigger crowd outside rather than having it open for, say, 8 hours.
Absolutely. I think it defies natural logic. If you want the crowd to disperse over time, give a longer time. If you keep the period short, and then, of course, and plus the less number of outlets. So that's a recipe for some crowd issues. And if you remember, when the lockdown was announced, the first few days were chaotic. And we saw similar scenes all over the country about various things, whether people are going for grocery, people buying many things. So in a few days' time, couple of days' time, when the government was firm in implementing social distancing, things fell in place very soon. I think if the government is firm on implementing the norms of social distancing, we can solve this problem without getting into the extreme actions, or in some ways I can say knee-jerk reactions, like shutting down shops. We have to open up more, because the reality is everyone recognizes that we cannot shut the economy forever. We have to open up. We have to move on. We have to find the most efficient way of moving on. And there's so much of talent around the government.
Yes, Mr. Giannani, very quick comment from you, Mr. Giannani, on this order that's just come in. Mumbai is one of your big markets, and here the civic body has decided that they can't afford these law and order issues or overcrowding issues, and they've decided to shut shops?
I have to yet take the clarification on this particular circular. I haven't seen this yet, but in case this is the decision taken by the government, I would have to respect this particular thing. Of course, I'm not looking at the liquor sales only. I'm looking at the Mumbai public also, and I'm looking at the coronavirus being spread very this thing. So whatever is the decision taken by the government, we will abide by that, and we stand by the government on this particular issue as such.
Okay, thank you both gentlemen for joining us. There are lots of ways this problem can be solved, including shops being open for longer time, including better organization and coordination, online delivery, token system. And token system, by the way, in cities like Mumbai has become quite the norm, even for essential supplies. That's how a lot of retailers are doing it. And so that's a tried and tested formula. There are these methods available. Instead of having a situation which converts into a law and order problem or even becomes a health risk with overcrowding and people falling over each other. And of course, one other last thing that we can look at is self-restraint. What's the rush? If not today, you can get it tomorrow. Let's not do it at the risk of our own health, at the risk of getting the infection. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I want to play out one more ground report that we got from the national capital, where seemingly this is still a big problem. Here's a report Prashant got for us.
Day 2 of lockdown 3.0, a lockdown with major relaxations and also opening up of liquor shops by various state governments. On the first day, we saw major chaos and commotion outside the shops across Delhi NCR. We are standing at one such liquor event in Noida right now, where you can see, unlike yesterday, today we have strict discipline and strict social distancing that is being followed by people. Right from the morning, we saw people queuing up here in large numbers. But unlike yesterday, where they were hopping onto one another to get a chance to, get their hands on booze, today they are standing in quite a distance. The circles for me yesterday, the circles are being followed today with people standing in distance from one another. To man all these, to ensure that this continues, we have a deployment of Noida policemen here. They have been here since morning, all geared up in their masks and gloves. They are also taking proper precautions. They are also someone who have taken precautions. They are posted here to man this particular liquor event. So this counter has been set up where no one can go beyond this, is what the shopkeepers are saying. They are also maintaining social distancing, masks and all they have put up. So this is exactly what is happening. सर आज तो भीड़ ज़्यादा आपको लग नहीं रही कि मतलब जैसे कल हो गया था एक टाइम पे आपको दुकान बंद भी करनी पड़ी थी. आज क्या पोजीशन है सुबह से?
सर पोजीशन है जब 9 बजे से लाइन लगी हुई है और एक एक करके कस्टमर जैसे कल हुआ था वैसे ही आज होगा. कोई भगदड़ वगैरह मचेगी तो शटर बंद होगा.
Well, let's get you the latest on the big developing story right now. Here in Mumbai, the civic bodies decided that non-essential shops that were given the relaxation of opening up 5 shops in one lane outside of the malls and marketplaces, that order now stands withdrawn. This includes your liquor shops as well. Disha is joining us right now with more details. Disha, take us through that circular that the BMC Commissioner has just issued.
Well, Tanvi, the BMC has just issued these orders for the city of Mumbai, clearly stating that the relaxations that were drawn up by the centre in red zones, of course, including Mumbai, stands withdrawn for the city. And here I am reading some important points of the circular. This essentially means that all the non-essential shops, including 5 per lane, and liquor shops will be shut starting tomorrow until further orders. So these are the clear and strict orders that have been issued by the BMC chief, and the order really says that there were multiple news reports, multiple news in the social media, and also inputs received from the police, and the ward officials said that there were huge crowds gathering near these liquor shops or even non-essential shops, flouting all the social distancing norms. It was also getting very difficult for the police to control the situation, and keeping in mind how the city of Mumbai is seeing positive cases increasing every day, the city here cannot really afford this at this given point in time, and that is why Specifically, it comes in at a time when Mumbai city has been categorized in red zone by the government of India, and the restrictions are imposed in view of that. So it clearly says that all of these relaxations about liquor shops being open, about non-essential shops, 5 per lane being open, stands withdrawn. This essentially means liquor shops and non-essential shops won't remain open starting tomorrow until further orders. And as we all know, Tanvi, we have also shared a lot of videos for our viewers on the channel, specifically in Mumbai, that how in different areas like Andheri, Bandra, Bhandup, Dadar, Matunga, a lot of people, crowd up to 2-kilometer line, they had to actually queue up outside liquor shops and flouting all the social distancing norms. So that is why these orders come in at a time to control the spread of the virus, is what the BMC chief Praveen Pardeshi says.
Yes, absolutely. So that's the order that's just come in from the BMC commissioner here for Mumbai. All non-essential shops that were given the permission to open now in lanes, 5 shops could have opened, but that order now stands withdrawn, largely due to issues of overcrowding, largely due to the crowd that you saw outside the liquor shops. But this is a decision that has been taken right now. Remember, viewers, that Maharashtra is on top of the list in terms of number of cases, and Mumbai is the city that has the highest number of cases, now hitting the 10,000 mark, which is why it is a big concern, and perhaps a lot more precautions need to be taken as far as cities of Mumbai and Pune is concerned. With that, we're completely out of time on this show. We're going to keep you updated as more and more news comes in. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of The Urban Debate.